So in today's session, we'll be discussing about what is logarithmic decrement. Which is generally indicated by notation delta. So to understand this, let us consider xt plot of uh, any underdamped system. So this axis is for x and this axis is for t. Now, I need to use this space. So let me remove it this instance. So this x-axis is indicating time, right? Now we are assuming that we have given some initial displacement to mass, and then after we are releasing this, then as we have assumed here under damped system, we have assumed under damped system, right? So in every cycle we get reduction in the amplitude. So suppose this is what displacement of any body with respect to time, right? Okay, so let me call this amplitude as xn, and after completion of one cycle there is some drop in the amplitude, some reduction in the amplitude due to damping, and now this amplitude after completion of one cycle, that is suppose I'm indicating by xn plus 1. If this is xn, then this is xn plus 1, this is xn plus 2, right? So in every cycle we get some reduction, and that reduction can be indicated by one curve which is tangent to all the peaks, which is tangent to all the peaks, right? So this reduction, this blue line is indicating some exponential value e to the power, which is nothing but zeta omega nt. Why I am writing this? Because this xn plus 1, they are nothing but response of any underdamped system. So we have already derived response equation for underdamped system. So let me write it for reference. So response equation for underdamped system is x, or first of all it's in general. So suppose it is x with respect to time is equals to, you are knowing this equation, right? It is e to the power minus zeta omega nt, then constant x into cos omega n square root 1 minus zeta square t uh, square root zeta t plus phi. I hope this equation is known to you, right? So this is what xt. So if I assume this is for to represent this xn, now what this x-axis is indicating time, right? So I can say time period of oscillation means time period is nothing but time required for completion of one cycle, right? So this is what Td, and this Td is nothing but 2 pi by omega d. And what is omega d? Is a damped natural frequency. So omega d is nothing but this entire term, which is omega n square root 1 minus zeta square. So omega d is nothing but 1 minus zeta square omega n, right? So this equation is nothing but cos omega dt plus phi. Okay, but now if you consider this equation is for xn, suppose this is representing xn, then for x n plus 1, then for x n plus 1, this t will be, if you are considering from t is equals to 0 to this first amplitude xn is taking time t, then this amplitude will be taking time t plus td. Is it clear? So for next cycle, I would write e minus zeta omega n, and now instead of t, I write t plus td. The reason is xn amplitude is after time t. Then xn plus amplitude will be after how much time? It is t plus this time period of vibration. So t plus td, right? So that is what written here, t plus td. X is as it is, and cos, instead of this t also I write t plus td. So cos omega n square root 1 minus zeta square, and instead of now t, we'll be writing t plus time period td, right? And this plus phi, right? So these are the two amplitude equation, xt and x, or I now I write here instead of xt, let me write this is nothing but xn equation, right? Okay. Okay. Now what is logarithmic decrement is? Logarithmic decrement is nothing but natural log of two successive amplitude. Natural log of two successive amplitude means ln xn
X
to
divided
xn
by
plus
X.
1, right? So to find out logarithmic decrement of this given plot, what we need to do, we need to take ratio of these two amplitude equations, right? So let us do that. So right now just ignore this ln, we just want to take ratio of these two equations, right? Ratio of these two equations. So if you see e raised to minus zeta omega nt, and here e raised to minus zeta omega nt plus td, then what happened? This power is to be subtracted, then minus zeta omega nt plus zeta omega nt t plus zeta omega n td. That will be the power. Is it clear? So
Yes, sir.
taking new page, and now so delta is, or before writing delta, let me first of all just write only x n by xn plus 1, then this equals to what will be the e. So if you look here, e is, after subtraction, e will be plus zeta omega n plus td, right? So this will be zeta omega n td, right? Now if you look here, if I expand this cos, what is td? TD is equals to 2 pi by omega d. So if I want to write TD, then TD is equals to 2 pi by omega d. So this is nothing but 2 pi by omega d is square root 1 minus zeta square omega n, right? So if I put this TD in this equation, then first I need to multiply this 2 plus this term is multiplied with TD. Then if you look, this TD, then this term and this term will be cancelled out. Then finally TD will be written as 2 pi, right? So I'm writing that term for x n plus 1 only. If you look this x n plus 1 equation, then this as it is x cos, let me write it fully, this will be e minus zeta omega n t plus td. Now cos, in bracket we have omega n 1 minus zeta square times t plus same omega n square root 1 minus zeta square, but now td I am writing as in multiplication 2 pi divided by this entire term, right? Omega n square root 1 minus zeta square. If you look again, then what I have done, I have multiplied this 2 and this 2, and then after plus phi. So plus phi, right? Then this equals to now, if you simplify this entire angle, which is cos angle, then cos, if you simplify this, then this will be cancelled out. Then we have this plus phi in plus 2 pi. Now cos 2 pi plus theta is what? Cos theta only. So I can write here this is nothing but cos omega n square root 1 minus zeta square plus phi, right? So if you look here, this angle, this cos this angle and cos this angle both are same. So this 2 will be cancelled out if we take ratio. X will be cancelled out if we take ratio. Then only remaining term is this e minus zeta e minus zeta omega n td. Is it clear? This step is clear because x n plus 1 is nothing but e is e minus zeta omega n t plus td. Then this is what the simplified form. So cos angle remain as it is. So that's why that is, if we take ratio, then these two are cancelled out, right? So we get only this term as a ratio. And now what we want to find out, we want to find, let me keep it as it is for your reference. I'm using one new page. So this x by xn plus 1 is this value, which is now we take as a natural log, then we get delta, which is logarithmic decrement, which is ln. This xn plus 1 is indicated by this, then that is e minus zeta omega d, sorry, not omega d, so omega n, so omega n into td, right? Okay, so if now again if we put what is td, td is 2 pi by omega n into square root 1 minus zeta square, then omega n will be cancelled out, and finally we'll get ln e to the power minus zeta under root 1 minus zeta square. Fine. If we put this TD is equals to 2 pi by square root 2 pi by omega n square root 1 minus zeta square, then we get only this term as a remaining. Fine. So now this is what called as, and 2 pi is also there, so 2 pi. So this is what we get as a ln. Now if you take this term down, which is power of e, then delta is equals to minus 2 pi zeta square root 1 minus zeta square, right, ln e, right. Now log e is what? Log e is equals to 1. Then what we can say, this is nothing but delta is equals to 2 pi zeta upon square root 1 minus zeta square. So this is what we got relation of logarithmic decrement, right? And now suppose if I want to find out from logarithmic decrement what is the zeta, then I write this equation in form of zeta. Then I need to take square of this side as well as this side to remove the square root. And if you simplify that, then you will get delta by square root delta square plus 4 pi square, right? So these are the two equations. One is for delta, this is logarithmic decrement equation. And what is zeta? That we know, it's a c by cc. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now if delta, which is natural log of two successive amplitudes, which is xn by xn plus 1, which we got as 2 pi zeta, divided by 1 minus zeta square. Now instead of 2, suppose I want to take n plus p amplitude, means suppose if I consider this amplitude, this is my 1 amplitude, 2, suppose if consider this cycle 1, 2, 3, and now if I want to take ratio of first to third cycle, means if I indicate here this amplitude is suppose x1, then this amplitude which is written by xn, that will be x2, this amplitude will be called as x3, and this last amplitude is called as x4. Now suppose if I want to take ratio of x1 by x4, this is what we will be going to do in our practical to reduce errors in the experiment. So if that I want to do, then what happened? You need to consider, because this ratio is for one cycle only. Now if you are considering here 1, 2, 3, 3 cycles, if you take ratio of x1 by x4, then you are considering 3 cycles, cycle 1, cycle 2, and cycle 3. Then you need to multiply it, this side by number of cycles. So if now I take ratio ln, which is of xn to not only xn plus 1 but x plus p, where p stands for amplitude after pth cycle, means if you consider cycle 1, 2, 3, then after completion of 3 cycle, what is amplitude? It's a x4. If you take ratio of x1 by x4, so that is what we are doing here. If you consider n is equals to 1, then x1 by x1 plus 3, then x4, right? If you want to find this, then what you need to do? You need to you need to consider 3 number of cycles. So here I need to multiply this with p, where p stands for number of cycles, right? So that is 2 pi by zeta square root 1 minus zeta square. Okay, so this is clear. Now if I do that, then this is what indicating this delta, because delta is only for one cycle with ratio of natural log, uh, ratio of two successive cycle and that natural log, right? So this is only delta. So I can write here this ln xn plus 1 is nothing but p into delta. Is it clear? Because this represents what? Delta, right? Then if I take ratio of not two successive amplitude, but after p number of cycles, then delta is equals to 1 by p ln xn by xn plus p. What we have done, we have done cross multiplication between these two. So p remain, so delta remain here, p go as a denominator of this ln xn plus 1. Is this clear? This equation is clear? Okay, so this equation will be using in our one of the practical. So that's why I discussed this. This will be helpful to you. यानी अगर आप यहाँ पे कंसिडर करते हो, let me show you by one practical case. Now suppose I again draw xt curve. This is x, this is time, and if I have given some amplitude, for example 10 mm, 10 mm is the displacement given, initial displacement given. And now in every cycle, due to damping, we will be getting some reduction, right? And after this, suppose I got mean position. So suppose if I call this first amplitude as x1, this is x2, this is x3, and this is x4, right? And if I tell you directly, this is 10 and x4 is suppose 2. And now if I want to find out what is the logarithmic decrement, I know this x1 is 10 and x4 is 2, then what is delta? Then if I want to take ratio of not two successive amplitudes only, means I'm not taking ratio of x1, x2, but I'm taking ratio of x1, x4, x1 to x4. So this x4 is after how many cycles? Suppose this is end of one cycle, then from this to this end of second cycle, from this x3 to x4 end of third cycle. So p is what? P is how much? P stands for number of cycles. So how many cycles this vibrating body has covered? 3. In this case, we got x1 to x2, one cycle is over, x2 to x3, second cycle is over, x3 to x4, third cycle over. So I need to write here 1 by 3, right? Yes. And if I take ratio of x1 and x2, then only 1, ln x1 by x2. So only one cycle. So P stands for number of cycles. So if you take ratio of x1 to x2, then only one cycle is covered. So I need to consider in that case as a 1. So it's a 1 by 1 like that. So this is what general equation actually. Delta is equals to 1 by P ln x n by x n plus P. This is general equation, where xn is initial amplitude, this is initial amplitude, P is what? It's a numbers of cycles, numbers of cycles. And what is xn plus p? Amplitude after pth cycle. So similarly, now will you please tell me if I take ratio of x1 to x3, then what is to be considered as a delta? Suppose I take ratio of ln x1 to x3, then what I should write as p? Ratio of x1 to x3. So two cycles are over, right?
Hmm.
So P is what? Number of cycles, right? P stands for number of cycles. So x1 to x3, if I'm taking ratio, then how many cycles? 1 and is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
So how many cycles we need to consider here? If I take ratio x1 to x3, then
2.
2. Yes. So quickly give at least